Yo.
What's up everybody, and welcome back to another Black Myth Wukong hints and tips video. This time, the main focus is on boss encounters with a specific focus on the chiefs and kings you face off against. Kicking off the series, we're starting off with the first chapter of the game. We're going to talk about some of the things to watch out for and some clues and hints I picked up on when facing some of your tougher adversaries in Black Myth Wukong. The game has been called a boss rush, and aptly so, as there are lots of these encounters through your journey with bosses, aka kings, and mini-bosses, also known as chiefs, that could have your back up against the wall unexpectedly. Here are some of my top hints and tips for these encounters, and I hope you manage to find something that helps you. So, without further ado, let's talk about it. Love you all. Okay, first up, you have your first chief encounter. This is still pretty early on in the game, and your first boss, so kind of take your time and kind of get used to figuring out how bosses kind of chain attacks and land big heavy attacks. Watch his movements, as he has key moments where you can strike him, and other times just focus on avoiding his attacks and building up your focus to land some nice heavy attacks. It's also a good point to watch out for your stamina at this point, because it's still pretty early on in the game, so your stamina gauge depletes pretty quickly from your movements as well as the dodging, so always keep that in mind. If you have resolute counterflow by now, it would be extremely useful for breaking some of his combo sequences, as he does seem to have pretty light armor and flinches with heavy attacks, so bear that in mind. If you don't have resolute counterflow, what I found useful as an alternative is to attack him when he's in a cooldown state, and the moment he wants to counterattack, freeze him in place. Use this to either land one final big attack, or, if your stamina is low, get out of his attack range, because he does hit pretty hard when he counterattacks. And like I said, your stamina at this point is pretty limited, so keep an eye on that. If he does manage to set you on fire with his attacks, just roll constantly until the fire is out. You won't really have much dousing ointment at this point to put out the flames, and I would recommend kind of saving it for later. Build up your stockpile, but in a pinch, it is pretty useful to just quickly use it, as long as you know that you can get the most out of it and attack before the ointment wears off. But again, I would recommend you saving that for later, and then just either getting used to his timing to avoid his attacks, or just rolling to put the flames out. Charge attacks work best with him when he's recovering from an attack sequence, so a good trick with him is to actually start counting his attack sequences and, you know, react accordingly to those openings. Most of his attack sequences are 3 to 4 hits in length, so watch the animations, figure out which ones are the 3 hit ones and which ones are the 4 hit ones, and then land a nice attack. You should watch out for his charge dashes though, and his staff throw. Those are very good at catching you unaware, especially if you are focusing on counting his combo sequences. They will catch you unaware, so if you're more focused on dodging his combo sequences, just keep an eye out for those surprise attacks, because they cover a great distance very quickly. He does seem to use them less frequently if you keep a close distance to him, but then he also does happen to launch into his strong volt attack a lot more frequently if you are close to him all the time, so your mileage may vary with this guy, but all in all, he's a great first boss to teach you some of the ropes that are going to come in clutch as you keep going on this journey. Goddamn sure he did. So this next encounter is really quite tough early on, and it's right after the previous boss too. This will humble you. This one will definitely humble you, and it's a tough nut to crack. I learned patience here, and it was very necessary. The first few encounters with him are just going to be a slaughter. They're going to be really brutal, but they're very necessary as you start to learn the timing of his attacks, and that's essential for this one. You have to learn the timing of his attacks and then what to dodge and what to get the hell away from him from. He has some really large area of effect attacks, and this one direct blast attack that you absolutely need to learn to watch out for. They all have certain opening animations that kind of cue you into which one is coming, so learn to pick those out, and it'll be very, very important because they do insane amounts of damage and are almost impossible to dodge if you get the timing wrong. You should also watch out for his jump attacks. They're quick and can close a gap immediately. I fell for this countless times before I realized that this attack is used from both a distant and pretty close up. And if they land, oh, they hurt. They really, really hurt. They took me out a couple times, like no lie, and I rage quit. I rage quit from this attack a couple of times. There are 2 different versions of this jump attack. One is quicker and shorter, and the other is more charged up. Avoid both of them, but definitely avoid the charged attack no matter what, as getting hit by it will likely end your run on the spot. If you do try to maintain close quarter combat with him, then you also need to watch out for his swing attacks. They feel relentless at first and almost impossible to dodge, and your only recourse really is to learn the perfect dodge with him, but watch out, because he likes to transition straight from the swing attacks to a ground tremor, which is one of those large attacks I was talking about you need to completely avoid. His blast attack has a decently long cooldown, and that leaves you time to get in some attacks. I usually like to side roll near him when I know this attack is coming. It allows you to find an opening to land a quick combo attack once he launches launches the attack and has a cooldown, but you really do not want to be standing in front of this attack. If you try to put some distance between you, it will still hit you, and I even tried to put a tree between me and this attack and it still solidly landed. So watch out for that one. He does have a smaller version of the Earth Tremor attack that for the life of me I never quite figured out how to block or perfect dodge. It usually comes at the end of a combo sequence and is very quickly and easily mistaken for the larger one, which has a longer startup animation sequence from him. This attack is painful. It does a good bit of damage and is so hard to spot. You just need to keep on your toes when he's doing his combos and always be prepared to try that perfect dodge or at least put some distance between you when it's coming. He will fall on his back a couple of times and cover his face in pain after you land a heavy attack. This is a great opportunity to try and build up some focus. There's a nifty trick I wasn't using here, which is using the spinning staff maneuver to kind of build up focus quickly when bosses are in this kind of state, or if you just want to land a couple of quick light combo attacks when he's in this state. It's really useful to build up some focus and then prepare for a heavy attack later on. So learn to watch out for those openings where bosses are in kind of a staggered state, because it does happen and it'll catch you by surprise. There is another variant of this boss that is easy to miss later on in the chapter. Oh, not this fucker again. You have to ring the 3 bells that you come across in this chapter to make sure that you actually get pulled into this boss fight. It's kind of a secret area, but then not too hard to miss. Just keep a watch out for those bells after you defeat those more difficult opponents. So, moving on, what does this variant do? It's mostly the same attacks as the Wandering Wight, very similar attack patterns, but then there are subtle differences to watch out for. He sometimes adds a chain to Wandering Wight's combo attacks, which is kind of unexpected. The other thing to watch out for this guy is he's surrounded by echoes of his disciples and he uses them in 2 main ways. One, commanding them to attack you, which causes them to start to kamikaze their way to you and explode when they get within range. So keep your distance when they do this, run, jump, dodge, and just do whatever you can until the wave is over. It doesn't last too long, but it can be quite annoying when they pile up on you. His long-range blast attack is also slightly different from the Wandering Wight. He absorbs the disciples prior to launching the attack, so there's a moment's pause between him absorbing them and the launch of the attack, which is what you have to watch out for, especially if you're like me and faced the Wandering Wight so many times you kind of got his attack timing in your head. Watch out for this one because this attack hurts, even with this guy. The other thing that those disciples are used for is he uses them to heal when you get to his health to about halfway or so. The trick here is to kind of just basically set up a tower defense around him when he's in that floating state. He won't hurt you, so just keep your focus on stopping them getting to him and he won't have any health recovery. I missed this my first time with him and the fight felt like a long drawn out battle of attrition just because I thought that he would keep doing that, but my second attempt when I discovered that I could actually just stop him from healing. Top tip, you can also use the same disciples to get your health back and save your gourd uses for more desperate health recovery moments. This was very useful once I discovered this because I basically blasted through the second round of it, barely having to use my gourd. So keep an eye out, watch his attacks. He also does the jump attacks, gotta watch out for those, especially he likes to launch a jump attack near the end of the sequence where his disciples are attacking you. So as much as you're busy trying to dodge those guys, keep an eye on him in the distance and maybe try to stay far away from him while you're dodging those guys.
Finish this. Fuck yes. Good game.
Don't let this fucker size fool you. He's quick and unpredictable until you learn to notice his tells before he attacks, and even then, he can still take you by surprise. He likes to stay in the edges circling the arena and then pounce unexpectedly and then quickly retreat to the edges again, which makes him a bit unpredictable and annoying to fight. I found it quite useful to switch to using the pillar stance when fighting this guy. It allows you a longer reach to strike when fully charged and also has been very useful for dodging some of his attacks when you're perched up slightly higher, so you may also want to gravitate towards using that one, although your mileage may vary. You have to just get used to doing perfect dodges and then chain them into quick counter attacks before he gets out of range again. There's 2 attacks where he pauses to taunt you. He kind of slashes at you and then stops to lick his paw. Other times he does this and then doesn't lick his paw, so you kind of just have to be on the lookout for this and then be prepared to launch a very powerful charge attack. I found this is the best time to launch those if you've already got some focus stored up, or alternatively you could try and hold in the focus charge button and running around the arena. You could run around the arena hoping to get a charge attack in, but then this usually does leave you open to his ambushes, as his tactic is usually quick attack and withdraw, so be careful of those ambushes. He really is very good at closing gaps. He also does take a lot of damage from transformations, so one useful tactic I relied on quite a bit was to freeze him in place when he's close, get your licks in, get some damage damage. When his health is low enough, I switch out to a transformation and then just get in some really good damage and some burn effect on him. Watch out though, as he sometimes likes to leap onto the rooftops of the surrounding buildings to launch a very vicious attack. This attack is generally a bit harder to dodge in your transformed state, but then it also allows him to force you to waste your transformation as he's completely out of range when he's up there, so this can be quite frustrating. But when all is said and done with this encounter, you just have to really lock in that perfect dodge and then kind of get used to his lunge attacks. There are a lot of attacks where he does leave himself open, but then again, he's always at a distance, so the best way is to close that distance. Jump attacks are also useful for this, although if you miss, it does leave you a little bit open when you slide towards your opponent, so be careful with that one. Apart from that, he's a pretty straightforward boss. He's big, so those hitboxes kind of suck. He also does do this one very vicious attack that kept catching me off guard a couple of times, where he launches you into the air, jumps up, and then slams you into the ground.
Oh, fuck me.
Oof, that's a very painful attack. But once you get used to his animations and sequences before he launches his attacks, then it's pretty easy to get those perfect dodges in. That's your best tactic with this guy. Perfect dodge and a counter attack.
And that's how we fucking do it. Yeah. Oh, that's so good.
Another very straightforward encounter with this guy. He's smaller, well, I would say normal size, so has a much more tolerable hitbox, and he also flinches with strong attacks, which is what I really like about these smaller boss encounters. Watch out for his poison attacks if you can, otherwise make sure to have a few antidotes on hand just in case it might be necessary to use those. The best tactic I found for him is to be very aggressive. This reduces the chance of him launching some of his spells like the serpents that poison you, and also just allows you to keep melting his health in case you get poisoned and don't have antidotes on you. This is definitely not an encounter you want to try and win on endurance or patience. Go on the attack, be very aggressive. Top tip: if you don't have potions and are low on health or have been poisoned and want to shake it off, use your transform spell. The Banes seemingly do not carry over between your form transformations, so this comes in handy in a pinch when your health is low and you need to get rid of a Bane such as flame or poison that is afflicting you. I also did notice that setting him on fire did some very decent damage, but just like it works for you, when he teleports or changes form, he also is able to extinguish the flames instantly, so use your transformations with caution. I, again with this guy, used it more towards the end of the fight just to cinch that victory and get some good damage in when I needed it. All in all, he's not that hard of an encounter and was quite fun to fight. Constant movement and an aggressive playstyle will quickly see you through this encounter. Oh, one more thing. When you're done fighting him, don't forget to ring the bell that's found on the path leading off from the arena you face him. This is the second of the 3 bells you need to sound to gain access to the secret boss fight in this chapter, so make sure not to miss it. This is one of your first encounters in the game that introduces you to boss fights where you have 2 distinct phases in the fight. For this encounter, you have to completely empty his health to get to the second phase, so in the beginning your main focus should be on receiving as little damage as possible before the second phase, so you enter that with as much health and as full a health gourd as possible. His attack patterns are pretty obvious. Fighting in the water causes a lot of his movements to be projected before they hit you, so that's one thing I found really useful. You can see the waves coming as he launches his attacks, but he also has a variety for you to wrap your head around. Since he's using a spear, he tends to wind up a swing before launching an attack, so this makes his more dangerous attacks easier to read, as his charge-up animations are a little bit longer. Again, if you have resolute counterflow, this makes it very useful to predict when to launch the counter during your light combo attacks. This is actually the first encounter where I figured out how to actually properly use resolute counterflow, and man, the results were glorious. Once again with this guy, since he's one of the smaller enemies you face, your attacks do feel really solid when they hit him, and heavy attacks really do some damage with this guy. One thing I will mention for this fight though is to keep moving when fighting him. Standing still for too long, for example to charge up a heavy attack, leaves you quite open to some of his attacks, as he does have some moves that are able to easily close distance, and he uses these very regularly, especially in the second phase of the encounter. He's another boss encounter where aggression is your best bet. The spear he has allows him to heal when he's in water, and well, the whole fight takes place in water, so you need to be on the attack as much as you can. Thankfully, he does leave himself open to counterattacks quite regularly with his lunge attacks and his bigger sweeping attacks, so take full advantage of chaining perfect dodges and quick light combo attacks to charge up your focus meter before he dashes out of range again to come in with another attack flurry. Fighting him constantly at close range is a bit of a hit or miss, as he does have some nasty light attack combos that keep you in place when he gets a sequence going, and these can be quite hard to predict as unlike other enemies, he doesn't project a lot of his attacks through sound. You just have to keep an eye on the water and the waves his attacks form to know what's coming and keep those dodges going until the last attack in the sequence, which usually also leaves him open to a quick counter if you happen to be near him and were able to successfully dodge his prior attacks. There is a hidden path or cave slightly off to the left of the entrance he was guarding when you first encounter him. This will take you to the third and final bell you need to ring to get you into that secret boss fight. So make sure to ring this and make an offering at the shrine in the memory you get pulled into, and take out the king before proceeding to the next area. Watch out for his cheeky kick and spear drag that follows it. That's my first tip with this guy.
Oh, damn.
When fighting him, the most annoying thing I found was that the camera breaks lock every time he transformed into that mist cloud form, which is kind of really annoying to keep track of him. Keep moving and try to avoid the attack that he does to come out of this state, and try to keep him centered in the screen or at the very least visible before he launches these lunge attacks when he's in this mist form. Usually the best opening to attack him I found is at the end of a series of chain of attacks, and especially when his spear glows during the attacks. Usually the length of his attack chain is a combination of 3 or 4 attacks, with him having a cooldown after the last attack in the sequence. Oh, and watch out for the area of effect attack that he does on occasion as well, where he stabs the spear into the ground. That one really caught me off guard a couple of times.
Openings there, but let's heal.
Do not try to freeze him when he's in the mist state. You'll waste the spell, and it doesn't work on him when he's in that form. I wasted a couple of these because he would transform right as I tried to freeze him. When you see he's done dashing, prepare a charge attack very quickly once you see him forming that tornado in the middle of the arena. When he comes back to a more corporeal form, he's open for a few seconds, so this is the perfect time to land a heavy attack that you charged up right beforehand.
Oh shit.
Or, if you already have some focus built up, definitely use it here. He also has a gourd on him. When you see him taking a swig from this, get out of the way because he's about to try and roast you. I did find that you can taunt him and get close, and when he uses this gourd attack to try and burn you, quickly roll to the side and then jump in for a quick light attack combo before he recovers and starts trying to attack you again. He also has a habit of vanishing quite a lot mid-fight, and when he reappears, he likes to land with a very strong attack.
Surprise, motherfucker!
My advice for this one would be to listen out for his yell right before he comes back and launches a heavy spear attack, and then keep dodging right after, as he sometimes launches into a series of spear slashes after his first heavy attack. Timing is key here, so you may not always get it in the first 1 or so runs, but you'll quickly learn his cues and then how to figure him out. And again, also, transformation spell with this guy does a decent amount of damage, especially if you can charge up your might in the transformed state and launch that special heavy attack that follows a dodge. This did some decent amount of damage, and I'm so glad I used it with this guy.
Brilliant damage. Oh, you got bad mana going through. Oh, god damn it. Jesus. Can I just set you on fire and be done with this?
This teddy bear can scrap.
Of course.
Whew.
Of course. Bro, that's two hits, and my health is empty. Okay, drink some juice. Oh yes, it's enhanced. Oh, thank God. Alright.
So another fight with 2 phases, but honestly not the worst fight of the chapter. I genuinely had fun trading blows with this boss and was almost disappointed when I managed to take him out in one go. Almost. So, let's get into it. What to watch out for in this encounter is his really aggressive fight style that seems to be all over the place. A sort of drunken bear boxing, if you will, that kind of keeps you on your toes because you never know which way he's going to attack. Another thing I noted was that there was a similarity to some of the techniques you faced with other bosses. In particular, the Black Wind King with his cloud step technique, and the Big Wolf with the sheer size and speed of this guy and how he attacks and swiftly withdraws. Even though the attacks seem relentless, he does seem to project them quite a bit, which is a benefit of his sheer size. But he can still take you by surprise. He achieves this by making his movements a bit harder to read during attack, so you're never quite sure when an attack sequence has ended. I even got into a mantra with this guy, telling myself that there's always one more attack when you think he's done. And yeah, there usually is always one more, and it actually helped me out once or twice. It goes without saying, but watch your feet with this encounter. There's plenty of flames in the area, and his aggressive fighting style generally pushes you around quite a bit, and it's easy to get distracted and find yourself walking onto and even fighting while standing in fire. When you enter the second phase of the fight, he transforms into a fireball version of the Cloud Step attack used by the Blackwind King. So, same tactic for this one. Timing a perfect dodge to the side will usually get you out of harm's way, so get used to that. But watch out in the second phase, because when he does do the fireball Cloud Step, he usually precedes that attack by shooting some flames from the arena floor, so try not to get caught by these. And pay attention to not walk onto the flames they leave behind either, because the flames do linger on the arena floor, which makes it even more of an obstacle to keep an eye out for when you're fighting him. Two buffs that I found useful to have going with you into this fight are a lot of dousing ointments. This is why I said stockpile and save them with the earlier fights. So, dousing ointments and the fireproof mantle spell, because you're likely going to be set on fire or catch fire by walking into those flames in this encounter, and they're your best defense apart from avoiding his attacks completely. Because of his size and the manner of his attacks, you're also typically better off dodging sideways as opposed to backwards, as his claws have quite some reach on them, and if you do try and dodge backwards, there are times that his claws will just nick you or catch you off guard, so be careful with that habit. I totally cheesed this guy at the end there though. I was out of coconut wine to refill my health and also pretty much low on mana and spells, so one trick I discovered is doing a transformation refills your health because that form has its own health bar, so very useful for getting out of a tight pinch. Don't bother trying to set him on fire in this fight because it doesn't really do much damage to him, although I didn't really get a chance to test this properly, but with the fact that he fights on fire, I don't think setting him on fire is really going to be your best bet with this fight. Okay, so that brings the first chapter bosses to a brilliant conclusion. I hope you enjoyed the video and found it informative with something useful to take away for your own playthrough. Or maybe you've been holding off on getting the game and are excited to now give it a go. Either way, I hope you were thoroughly entertained and I appreciate you for sticking to this point in the video. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel for more content, and let me know down in the comment section what worked for you and what I could improve on for the next videos, as well as any useful hints and tips I may have missed out on. It really helps the channel out and I'm genuinely interested in all the feedback I get. Videos for chapter 2 and onwards are in the works and coming out soon, so definitely make sure to subscribe if you don't want to miss out on those. Until the next one, peace!